Support comes from BECU, a member-owned credit union putting people over profit, offering financial services and support to the community with access to local financial centers, over 30,000 ATMs, and online resources at becu.org. Federally insured by NCUA.
Hey, it's Patricia Murphy. It's Thursday. This is Seattle Now. Seattle's real estate market is on fire. And if you want to get in, you'll need more than just a lot of cash up front.
You know, one agent told me recently, you have to be willing to give your grandmother in the offer to the seller.
In a minute, Seattle Times reporter Heidi Groover will tell us what people are doing to get into a home. But first, let's get you caught up. After 2 days of debate, Democrats in the state House have advanced a bill for a new capital gains tax. The measure would impose a 7% tax on the sale of stocks, bonds, and other assets over $250,000. The money raised, estimated to be about $450 million a year, would be spent on education. The bill now goes back to the state Senate for final passage. Opponents call it an illegal income tax, and it's probably headed for court if it becomes law. One of the city's biggest pizza chains is paying up to avoid a legal battle with its delivery drivers. Eater Seattle reports that Pagliacci will pay nearly $4 million to settle a class action lawsuit that accuses the company of violating state labor laws. Among the allegations made by a former driver back in 2017, that it didn't give drivers proper rest and meal breaks, that it charged customers automatic delivery fees but didn't share that money with drivers or tell customers they were keeping it, and that the company didn't distribute tips evenly. More than 1,000 current and former drivers will split the dough. Full disclosure, a member of the Murphy household delivers for Pagliacci and could get upwards of $11 from this deal. And heads up for dog lovers. New research from the University of Washington says humans can transmit coronavirus to animals living with us. A UW study of COVID and pets found antibodies in 23 dogs. They're not the first cases in the country, but they are the first cases of a pet testing positive for COVID exposure in Washington. Still, the CDC says the risk of animal to human spread is low. The state veterinarian, yes, we have one, says if you're a dog owner who's sick with COVID, take all the precautions you would around other humans. And if your animal becomes sick, call a vet. If you're looking to buy a home in Seattle, good luck. It is really tough work. Not only is it competitive and expensive, it's a big time commitment. Average prices in the city are hovering around $816,000. So for a lot of people, taking the plunge might seem more like a fantasy, fresh out of a reality home buying show. Heidi Groover is a reporter with the Seattle Times. She covers real estate. Her latest report, How to Buy a House in the Seattle area's red-hot 2021 real estate market, is a deep dive into the competition of the current market in the city. Hey, Heidi.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for taking the time and helping us out today. Anybody who has attempted to buy a house in this city gets, at one point, usually pretty early on, a cold, hard reality check. Heidi, you spoke to a couple who were on a home buying quest, James and Emily. Tell me a little bit about them and how they approached this huge purchase in their life.
Yeah, James and Emily, they were living north of Seattle because that was the location where they needed to be for one of their jobs. And they hadn't really been thinking that they'd be able to move. But then because of the pandemic, with people being able to work from home more, they realized that they would be able to move where they wanted, which is in the Tacoma area. And so they started, talking to an agent. They embarked on this process with kind of an idea in their head based on what they had seen on TV.
Particularly watch House Hunters every night and then glamorize it. It's like, okay, well, I was a first-time home buyer. I want 3-bed, 2-bath, and my max is going to be $350, and I want everything my wish list. I want a man cave. I want at least 1,000 square feet. I want my bedroom facing east. So, I can look at the moon at night. And when the process started, it was none of that.
We tried to come up with as many creative things as we could to be able to give ourselves a little bit more of an advantage because we don't have, $320,000 sitting around in our back pocket.
You know, I'm curious at what point James and Emily figured out that things were not going to be as clean as they are on reality television.
I mean, I think that it was, once they put an offer in and lost, they put in something that they thought was a really competitive offer, and they just didn't get it.
Sharon had to contact her directly, and then she was like, oh yeah, no, we went with somebody else, thanks though.
Exactly. So that point, we were kind of turned off by the process.
You got to have so much resilience, Heidi, to stay in this market. I cannot imagine. Tell me some of the things that home buyers are up against right now.
Sure. The very obvious is just needing a ton of money. That, of course, is going to depend on where you buy. All the costs vary, but pretty much everywhere people need cash. And then way beyond that, they need to have a good understanding of the process and some of the protections that they're going to be asked to waive. They need to be able to kind of quickly make decisions. Some people are, having trouble even getting in to see a house before someone else buys it. And so there's just an incredible amount of pressure along the way.
Did James and Emily mention how all of this work paid off for them in the end?
Yeah, they did eventually find a townhouse in Tacoma that they love and they're really happy with. It's exactly, where they wanted to end up. And last time I talked to them, they said they were finally able to start watching HGTV again after, having to stop during their home search.
Great. So competition is stiff, and it sounds like what you're saying is that people who are going into this market are prepared to make significant trade-offs. You said protections, but what are we really talking about there?
There are the trade-offs in kind of your dream house. You're probably not going to get everything you want exactly where you want for the price you want. So people are having to come to grips with that. There are also the protections I mentioned are known in the industry as contingencies. And these are things like, your right to inspect a house before you buy it, that are built in to give the buyer some protections before they finally sign off on a deal. But because the market is so competitive, buyers are facing pressure to waive these contingencies, meaning, for example, with the inspection, they might buy a house and agree that they don't get to do any inspection before they buy it, or they have to pay for their inspection ahead of time before they even know whether they're going to get the house.
That sounds unnerving. I can't imagine being someone making the largest purchase of your life without an inspection, without those protections that you're talking about.
That's right. And, nobody feels good about this. Real estate agents don't feel great about it. The buyers don't feel great about it. But everyone kind of acknowledges that because the competition is so difficult right now, there are pressures to waive these. Certainly doesn't mean you have to. But, if you want to buy a house, especially quickly, these are the things that you have to consider.
Yeah. Okay, obviously, cash is king right now, but sometimes it's not enough.
Yeah, I talked with Sharon Chambers Gordon. She's an agent based in Tacoma, and she has a lot of experiences like this with buyers where they're really throwing everything they have at an offer and they're just losing to someone, oftentimes someone with more money.
We looked at a Craftsman home, which seemed to be the most popular house style in our area here in Pacific Northwest. The house was 111 years old, but very well kept. So I ran my videos, I sent it to them, talked to them on FaceTime. There were some necessary upgrades that needed to be done, but they were willing to live with that and, put in a French drain and all of those things. And so we offered $100,000 more on the house. We waited with bated breath, anticipating that we would get it because that is a, good sized chunk of money to offer on a home, $100,000 over asking price. And then we got the email that no, we did not get it. So I reached out to the listing agent to ask him if we could be in the backup offer. And that listing agent said, no, Sharon, a cash offer is the backup offer. So we didn't stand a chance at all.
Heidi, $100,000 is not chump change. What can people do if they don't have a huge pile of cash to get into it right now?
Yeah, buyers are looking to all sorts of strategies to try to make themselves more competitive and to try to win houses that they're making offers on. So some people are writing personal letters about kind of their life story and how they see themselves in the house. Some people are waiving these protections like inspections and other things that you have. And, agents are just saying that it's really difficult to win without cash. And, one agent told me recently, you have to be willing to give your grandmother in the offer to the seller.
Oh, no. Don't give your grandma. Do the things you talk about in your article in terms of solutions make you hopeful about the housing market? Are you hopeful as a person living in the city?
I can't really say that I am. I think that, I was glad to learn about some of the assistance programs that are out there and, to talk to people who said, I didn't think I'd ever be able to buy a house, but I did. But in the big picture, there's no indication in the short term that prices are going to start going down again. And for a lot of people, that is just going to mean that they're not able to enter this market. They're not able to buy a home and certainly not, in Seattle or in the neighborhood that they've grown up in or become used to.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who grew up in this city who can no longer afford to live here for one reason or another. We've been hearing a lot about that. I'm curious how first-time home buyers should think about buying a home. How should people look at this purchase right now?
Well, it's a combination of needing to be realistic and then if it's something that is important to you, finding ways to not give up on that. So it's important not to sugarcoat what's going on right now and, to find people like your real estate agent and your lender who are going to be honest with you about how difficult it might be. I think it's just about understanding whether it's a priority for you right now and whether you're willing to endure what the market feels like today for buyers.
Yeah. It does beg the question, why bother even trying to buy a house in this market? Why bother to even think about that as an option?
Yes, it does. It does bring up that question, and it does for me personally. I think that, what you most often hear is that it's a good investment. It helps you to have equity that you're not going to get as a renter. I think that if it's something that's financially doable, I can certainly see the benefits, but it's hard to imagine it being realistic for a lot of people right now.
Heidi Groover is a reporter with the Seattle Times. Thanks, Heidi. Great to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
Seattle Now is produced by Clare McGrane, Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, and Jason Pagano. Brandy Fullwood produced today's show. Matt Jorgensen does our music. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you tomorrow.